Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to my tutorial on designing and authoring publishing-oriented XML documents. So, how do we get started? Well, the first thing we want to see is some kind of sample document to start with. So I'm going to open up Safari here. We're working in my Mac virtual machine. And I happen to know about a press release that came from the SynchroSoft company, who's the company who makes our Oxygen XML editor. And they apparently have published this using a service called 1888 Press Release. An interesting capability. I'm not really familiar with this, but it looks nice. And this is the press release that they put out a few months ago. I'm recording this in January 2016. They put this out on October 23rd, 2015, when they released version 17.1 of the Oxygen XML editor. And they probably authored this as an XML document. This would be very typical for them to do. They're XML people. But right now, the document that we are looking at is an HTML document. And it's probably just been transformed from an XML document using XSLT, okay? And the result is an HTML page which we're able to read. So we're going to reverse engineer this a bit, okay? Just because we can. So what's the content going to look like? Well, it's going to look like all this stuff that we see here. I don't want that upfront stuff. Or do I? I may. I may want that. Yeah. Okay. I hadn't been thinking about that before. So let's get all this stuff here. Okay. Parts I don't want when I get them, I'll get rid of. Okay. So I did a copy. Okay. Now I'm going to open up the Oxygen XML editor because that's where we work. And I'm working on the Mac here, in a Mac virtual machine. Some of the controls on the Oxygen XML editor look a little different under Mac than they do under Windows, but the functionality should be the same. And let's go up to the menu, click on File, New. And they offer me a recently used XML document. And well, that's what I want, but not everybody would have that if they're just joining us. So let's open New XML document. There it is. Create that. And the only thing we get is the first line, which we know from our previous lectures and tutorial is an XML declaration. That tells us this is an XML document, what version of XML we're using, 1.0, and what encoding scheme we're using, UTF-8, which is great for English language prose, which is, in fact, just what we have. Okay, so let's right-click and paste the content into the document. Alrighty, well, that looks good. Now, interestingly, here's what I can see. I can see I have the XML declaration, right? Then it looks like I have the blurb text that was up front. That's probably some kind of, some kind of abstract, okay? Then I've got the beginning of the press release. It looks like, if I scroll out to the right, it looks like I don't have, I haven't done word wrap on this such that I can keep all the content in the part of the document that's easily edited. And what I'd really like to do is I really would like to go up to our toolbar. We've got two, the upper and the lower. We want to go to the lower one. And there's an icon here for formatting, format and indent. And it would be great if we could click that and get the lines to wrap for us, but I'm going to click that and you'll see that they don't. And the reason that they don't is that this, even though it claims to be an XML document, is not a well-formed XML document. And because this reformatting is done by the XML parser, it only knows how to provide that services once the document is well-formed. Okay, so let's figure out what's not well-formed about the document. How do we do that? Well, we can, first of all, we can look at this red squiggly line, okay? And if we hover over it, it says content is not allowed in Prolog. And for an experienced hand like me, that says, oh, we're in a part of the document that's before the root element. That's called the prologue. And we don't have a root element at all because we said this is an XML document, but it's not really. So let's take the whole document except for the XML declaration, okay, and let's enclose it in a root element. So the way that we enclose some highlighted text is on the Mac, we hit Command E. On Windows, we hit Control E. And now it wants to know the tag that we want to enclose it in. And I want to put this into, I think I would like my root element to be called press release with a capital R. I'm going to use camel capitalization again. We've used that in previous tutorials. Okay, so that's good. Now I should have a well-formed document, and I'm going to know that for a couple reasons. One is in the upper right-hand corner, what had been a red block has turned green. So the dynamic well-formedness checking has detected that it's well-formed. And then if I go up to the lower toolbar, take the drop-down next to the checkmark icon and say check for well-formedness, well, it's going to say down the bottom we're going to get the green block document is well-formed. So we got rid of our symptoms. Okay, so now that the document is well-formed, probably now we can reformat it. So I'm going to go up to the lower toolbar again, hover over Format and Indent and click that. And hey, look what just happened. It got formatted and indented. Now, is that what I want? Well, it's not really what I want because I have lost my paragraphing. That's not what I wanted, okay? So I got some of what I wanted, but not all. Okay, let's go back and back up. On my Mac, that's Command Z. On Windows, it would be Control Z. And let's say, okay, let's take each of the paragraphs and make them some kind of paragraph. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to take the first one and go all the way to the end of it. And I'm going to say that's not a paragraph per se. This is an element that I'm going to call an abstract. Okay, so Command E, put it into an element called abstract. Okay. And now the next ones, these are going to be paragraphs. Okay. Except that I don't think that the paragraph starts with this stuff. I'm not sure what this stuff is yet, but I think that the paragraph really starts with Oxygen XML editor. So let's start highlighting there. Go to the end of that line. Got all that highlighted. I'm going to do Command E. And The question is now, what am I going to call my element that's going to represent a paragraph, which is a major structural element in my XML document? Well, if I wanted to make it look like an HTML document, I could just use P, because that's what they use there. I just want to emphasize the fact that it doesn't have to be the same here. So maybe we'll call it para. Okay? It's not as long as the whole word or as short as P. Okay? So we've got that. Then I'm thinking, let's move that over here. Okay? Maybe put an extra line in here. So we've got some kind of heading we don't know what to do with yet. And let's go down to the next one, and let's make that a para as well. Okay, so Command E, para. And what I'm going to do now, for those of you who are following along on the video, I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to do the rest of the things I want to put into paras, so the video will be a little bit shorter. So you'll be rejoining me in just a minute. Okay, so now I've unpaused, and you'll see that I've put the rest of the paragraphs into para elements. Now I've come down to one that I'm not really sure about. Is this a proper paragraph? Is this a normal paragraph? And when I look at it, well, it kind of is. It's plain old English. Oxygen 17.1 can be freely evaluated for 30 days from, and then we have the URL of their download link. That's pretty much standard English. So I'm going to take that for right now and just put it into a para. And again, if you want to enclose highlighted text, you use Command D on Mac and Control E on Windows. So para, okay, mark that up. And then we have about SynchroSoft. Okay, now what's interesting here is that I just happen to know that these paragraphs along the bottom are maybe a little different than your typical paragraph, okay? Because they're standard in a lot of these press releases. Now, they probably evolve over time, but they're pretty standard. They're boilerplate, okay? So I'm thinking that those are probably a little different than the paragraphs that we have so far. So here's what I'm going to think. Maybe the paragraphs that we have already that come under the heading, we ought to think about as maybe the body of the press release, and maybe the stuff at the bottom, we want to consider some kind of aftermatter, right? So why don't we do that? So why don't we highlight the paragraphs up ahead, and again, Command E, and let's say maybe body's a little too HTML-y of words. So let's say that it's the main content. Call it main content, camel capitalization, okay? So that's in the main content. And then let's say that the stuff that comes after it, let's say that those three are, let's say that those three, again, let's say that they're paragraphs, okay? So we can say that they're paragraphs about SynchroSoft is a para. So let's go out and put that into a para. This is a long one. It's boilerplate, so they can be a little bit long-winded, I guess. A lot of wind. Whole lot of wind. Well, they have a lot to say about themselves, don't they? Okay, and we're going to Command E and say that this is a para, okay? And scroll back. And we have this other paragraph. And we'll make that a paragraph. E para. And how do I know this? Well, it kind of makes it mostly from experience, okay? And then so where are we? So now we have now we seem to have some information that's down here at the bottom about the source of the press release. Okay, so I don't think that's a plain old paragraph. Let's say that we are going to create an element called source. So let's take all that. And maybe source is the wrong thing to use because, of course, when SynchroSoft is authoring it, okay, they don't think of themselves as a source. They think of themselves as the originator. Okay, so let's call this originator. Okay. All right. And then let's see, we have, so we're going to get rid of the word source because that's a heading. And that's a heading that we'll be able to generate when we generate the press release. So it looks to me like we have main content, and then after main content, let's have another container element called aftermatter. Okay, and whether people in PR actually use these words, I don't know. But I think I have everything. I come up with a name for everything except this this stuff up at the top. So this 1888 press release, because this has come out on the 1888 site, I'm thinking that that's something that the publishing website added. Okay, so I'm thinking that that was a gratuitous ad, didn't really come from SynchroSoft, so let's get rid of that. Okay, and then we've got this October 23rd, 2015. Okay, and let's say that this is the press release date. Okay, so let's see, where could this go? Well, I like the idea of the press release date being in an attribute on the start tag for press release. So what would that be like? Date equals, and then I'm going to put this into standard ISO date format. So it's going to say 2015-10-15. All right, so that's taken care of. So all that's out of there. All right, now I'm thinking that if we reformat this again with the format toolbar button, format and indent, that we're going to get indentation that shows the structure of the document. And it kind of looks like we have, but interestingly, the para is not giving us a line break. Well, that's not what I want. Okay, well, how can I force that to happen? Well, I can by coming into the Oxygen XML editor. I have to go to Preferences, okay? So let's go to Preferences. On Windows, I think it's Window Preferences. Here on the Mac, it's Oxygen XML Editor Preferences. And we're going to bring up the dialog. And let's go to Appearance. Application Layout. No, that's not it. It was just there. So let's go to Editor, Format, Okay. And going to put this on pause till I find the feature. It's always sort of a problem to cast about for features while you're waiting. So hang on. I knew I would find it. Okay, so over here under the preferences, we're under editor, format, and then we're going to click on XML. Okay. And now in that, there's right in the middle there, there's a kind of a tab bar. The last one is line break. Okay. And this is, what are the names of the elements that we want to line break either before or after. And let's add, let's put para. And it says that we're going to line break before. I think that'll do it just fine. So let's just say OK. And let's reformat it again. And look at that. We've got these paragraphs, which are kind of nice. I'd like to get a blank line in there too, wouldn't you? So how could we do that? I think we just have to add an after. Let's look. So Oxygen XML editor preferences. Again, we're down at editor, format, XML. Let's click on after as well and say OK. And now we're going to format it again. And it didn't work. How about that? Well, let's take a pause. I'll find that feature too. And so I did a little bit of canoodling around, and I discovered the following things. One is that I've already said that I'd like it to preserve the line breaks we have already and preserve the white space. So for instance, preserve the blank lines. So if I want an extra blank line between paragraphs, I just have to add it in. So I've got this looking pretty good. Okay, paragraph. So that looks good to me. I like a blank line between this main content and after matter. Okay, and let's go up here. I like one after main content before para. And just to prove that those are going to be preserved, I'm going to format it again. And they're going to go away. Isn't that beautiful? Well, that isn't the way it was supposed to work. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to make it work this time. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. I got a little weird behavior from the editor, but I've done a couple of things now, and I think I have it right. So one is that I have saved the document, and it has a proper name. So how did I do that? Well, I went up to the menu and clicked on File, and then Save As. And I had created a directory in one of my previous tutorials called My XML Files. And I already had a sample1.xml file in here before. And what I did is I just simply type up in here, Oxygen press release, separated by underscores, because words separated by underscores, because counting capitalization as significant in file names is very operating system dependent. Okay, so the underscores are better out in the operating system like this. So, and then I saved that. So I did that. It wants to know if it should replace it. Sure, replace it. So you can do that. The other thing is that I went back to the preferences, and the first one was called preserve empty lines, and that's what I wanted to work, and that was checked before. And I did the unusual thing is I turned it off. Okay. And when I turned it off, when I formatted it, the empty line went away. And then I went back and turned it on again. Preserve empty lines now checked on. And now I was able to add an empty line and format it. Oh, the last time I did this, it did not go away. This is just unbelievably frustrating stuff. So let's see if I save it here, if it does any good. Nope, it didn't. That's pretty interesting stuff. Okay, I think that's a bug. So we're not going to worry about that right now. Something you can do if you're not getting that preserve empty lines working right now is if you take the end tag and put the end tag on its own line, the end tag kind of gives you some visual room, okay? And sometimes I like this better than having blank lines in here anyway, okay? So what happens if I save this and I reformat it? Will it put them back? Put them back. Okay, well, my. So for right now, at least in this demo, we're not going to get the white space that we'd like, but such is life. Okay, so that's all the formatting we're doing with the formatting feature because it's really not treating me well today. So I'm going to put the abstract out here by itself. Then we've got the main content. I'm going to go back and put the paragraphs back where they belong. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about reformatting it with the automatic reformatting feature because it doesn't seem to be honoring my wishes. Don't know why. Of course, it's always the last thing you try with all of these things. Okay, and I'm going to put this paragraph here. Okay, so that looks fine. Save this again. Let's put a blank line between main content and aftermatter. Okay, put a blank line before abstract and a blank line after abstract and before main content. And that's not too bad. That looks pretty good. Okay, so what have we done here in the markup so far? Well, one is we found a home for all the content that we had in the free text document. So that's good. And the only thing we did that was at all razzle-dazzle is we took the date and we decided we were going to carry it as an attribute for the press release element itself. And so that is a typical way to carry a date. It's not the only way. We could have made that a sub-element, but I always like to show how we would have an attribute as well. Okay? And that looks good. Now, do any of these things need to be marked up further? Okay? Well, why would they need to be marked up further? Well, you have to think ahead to what's going to be done with this document. And this document is one that we're going to transform later in our course. And we're going to turn it into, we're going to use XSLT to do a transformation. And one transformation that we'll do will be to make it an HTML page. And if we get the chance, there'll be another transformation when we turn it into a high-quality print document using XSLFO. Now, are there any bits of text in here that we might want to give special treatment when we're doing a transformation? It could be that they have a special meaning. It could be that they have a special role, a special part of the structure. Maybe we don't have enough structure here yet. So one thing I know is we do have a link here. So let's go down here in the bottom. We have this originator. Okay. And again, let's separate out the tags a bit so they're a little bit easier to see. So we've got the originator, this. Oh, and we've got these 3 pound signs. And for some reason, there is a tradition of ending the text of a press release and maybe a lot of documents that they transmit with a triple pound sign. So this is something that was probably added to the content that came from our authors by the people who published it on the website. So I'm going to take that and get rid of it because we can understand the structure of the document from the markup. We don't really need that. But down here in originator, okay, we've got we've got something that's going to be turned into a link, at least in the the HTML version. So we have a name, and then we have a URL. So what would that look like? Well, let's think about how we could take an XML sort of approach to this. We know what the HTML approach would be. We would put it into an A element, okay? Well, that's very formatting oriented, okay? So how could we be more semantic? How could we enclose this thing in a way that would say what this means rather than how to format it? Well, we could say, well, this is a reference to this is a reference to an organization, right? Because SynchroSoft is an organization, and maybe we want to keep track of organization names. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take the whole thing. Okay. No, let's not do this. Yeah, let's take the running text here. And let's enclose it with an organization element. Okay. Okay, what does that look like? So we have originator, and we have an organization. And then within the organization, let's have a URL for the organization. So let's have an attribute that we just call URL equals double quotes. And then let's just take the other text, the URL text, and cut it and paste it into the URL. Okay, so that when we create the HTML version of this, we'll be able to create a proper link for this in the HTML. Okay. All right, that looks good to me. Now the aftermatter I haven't cleaned up yet, so let's put the end tag for the para on its own line in each case. Okay. So are there any other organizations that we would like to mark up? Well, we don't have to, but we could. Okay. So for instance, SynchroSoft is already linked once. Okay. Now we could decide that we want to turn the first link, the first reference to each organization name, we would like the opportunity to be able to make that a link in whatever way we decide to present the document. Okay, so what's that look like? Well, what's the first time we talk about SynchroSoft? Well, you know, it looks like SynchroSoft. Okay. Oh, we have about SynchroSoft. We have aftermatter. Okay. And we have a paragraph, but it turns out we have a heading at the beginning of that about SynchroSoft. So before a paragraph, let's decide we also need a structural element for heading. Okay. This is looking pretty presentation oriented, but that's okay. And let's take that heading and subtract it out and paste it in there, cut and paste, get rid of the extra space that I have. Okay, that's nice. All right. So SynchroSoft, again, could be something that we could decide that we would like to be able to perhaps turn into a link later because it's an organization name. So let's decide that SynchroSoft is going to be marked up again as an organization. So we're going to Command E it. Say we want to put it in an organization element. Okay. And we are going to give it a URL. And I happen to know that the best way to get to their website is www.oxygenxml.com. Okay, so that's their website. So you would be able to do that. And really want to talk about the difference here between how we would have marked this up as HTML and how we're going to mark it up as XML. So we prefer to, when we're creating the mixed content here for SynchroSoft, to not say exactly how to present it, because we might want to present it one way when we transform it for a web page, and another way when we transform it for print. So what we do want to do is just give meaning information about this is an organization. And it creates an opportunity from the information that we have here in the markup that we could create a link if we want, but it is not a link per se. Okay? It creates a linking opportunity. Okay, so we did it for SynchroSoft. Let's see what other organizations we have. Well, we have the World Wide Web Consortium, and let's put that on its own line. Again, white space is not all that critical. So let's get that on its own line. Let's enclose this, Command E here, in an organization. Okay. And let's say this one has a URL equals, and I happen to know that theirs is http www.w3c.org. Okay, so that's going to take care of them. So let's go look, is there any other organization that we want? I don't see one. Okay, so what else could we mark up? Well, typically you want to look at proper nouns. You know, are there proper nouns you want to talk about? Well, I think there is. We have a product here that we're trying to publicize called Oxygen XML Editor. And you know what? That can be, there's a product site for it. Okay. So how about we decide that the phrase, the first time we get to Oxygen XML Editor, we're going to enclose that, Command E, in a product element. Okay, this is creating mixed content. Okay, and you know what else I'm seeing here? Let me back that out with Command Z. I'm saying that within the abstract, we might have more than one paragraph in the abstract, and yet we haven't shown paragraphing within the abstract. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside here, and I'm going to say the abstract is just, oh, sorry. Let's enclose all this in a para. Okay, enclose it in a para. And then we're going to hand format this because my auto formatting is not behaving as expected. So this looks pretty good to me. All right, so we have a one paragraph abstract, and then we want to take the phrase Oxygen XML editor, and we want to, again, mark that up to show that it's the name of a product. So Command E here to enclose it in a product element. And again, we'd like to associate a URL with the product, so URL equals. And probably the best way to point to it would be with just the HTTP www.oxygenxml.com. Okay, and I realized that edito is not what we wanted. We accidentally lost our R, so I'm going to cut and paste that. And I just also want to point out that somewhere we need a space. Now, what I typically do is that when I mark up a phrase or a word is I put the markup tightly around that word, and I keep the spaces outside. So you can see here it says discover the new space, and then product. It doesn't have extra spaces either on the beginning or the end. And then after a product, we have space version 17. And that's going to take care of just what we want. Okay. Now, there are a couple of other words in here that we might want to link to, or we might want to give special typography to. Okay. And they are standards. Okay. So for instance, I see CSS here. So let's decide that we're also going to have standards. Let's enclose something standard. Okay, this is a technical standard. All right, and that's fine, except I need a URL for that. So let's find a URL for CSS. So let's get the browser up. CSS standard W3C. CSS current status, HTML, and CSS. Oh, that looks good right there. Oh yeah, that looks great. So let's just steal that URL from that page, and let's use that as the URL associated with the standard. And we could put other information here other than just the URL into attributes. But to tell you the truth, in web publishing, usually what people want to do, two things that they would like to do is that they would like to create a link when they create a web page, and where they would like to give that text some distinctive typography. And just doing what we're doing here is going to take care of that. And what other standards have we got? Well, I happen to know that DITA 1.3 is a standard, Darwin Information Typing Architecture. So we're going to enclose that in a standard Okay. And again, I don't know where there's a good reference to Ditto 1.3, but let's get the browser up and look. Ditto 1.3 standard. Okay. This is oxygen. Now that doesn't seem like it. Overview of Ditto 1.3 at Ditto XML.org. That looks promising. Yeah, overview of Ditto 1.3. I like that page. So let's link to that. Copy that. And then we'll close the browser. And for that standard, we're going to say URL equals, and now we're going to put in that URL. So now I'm going to save too. Is there anything else that I need? SynchroSoft, XML. Now we haven't pointed to a standard for XML, and maybe XML is such a general term that we don't have to. I mean, this, after all, is an XML editor. Okay, so this becomes an editorial decision. We could decide to mark up XML, okay, but I'm not going to do it. Okay. So I think I have just about everything I want here. Oh, I've got one more thing here I need to do. Down here in the bottom of the main content, I've got something that could become a link because it's a URL, okay? And let's enclose that in something that just says that it's a URL. Okay, so let's enclose it in a URL element, okay? And this will give us the opportunity later to, if in fact we want to create a link in our web page version, or give it unique typography, even in our high quality print version, we'll be able to do that. Okay, so we just say it's a URL. And I think that's about it. Okay, so now, how do I know that this is enough markup? Well, it's really only after I go use the document for the purposes that I'm going to use it that I'm sure that I have marked up the document enough to get the results that I want. Having transformed a number of these kinds of documents into HTML pages and high quality print XSLFO documents using XSLT, I kind of get the feeling that I'm just about right. But the only time I'm really going to know is when I go do it. And if it turns out that I would like to be able to, identify other words and phrases that I haven't marked up yet, well, then I'll probably have to go back to the document and do some more markup. But for right now, I think it's a great start. So, having gotten off to a great start, I'm going to save it one more time. I'm going to check it for well-formedness one more time, and it's well-formed. And I'm going to scroll up to admire my work, which I'm apt to do from time to time. And now I'm going to say goodbye until next time. Bye-bye.